Garden City University, Joseph Sir, and specifically to Mr. Christo. And he also connected with me through him. Exactly this program is exactly plotting to you. And at the same time, I also would like to thank everybody, those who are going to attend this session, those who are already attended this session. Once again, they are coming to this platform. And with this short introduction, let me directly coming into the content. Most important thing, you need to understand the importance of literature review, as Dr. Sudhakar has mentioned. And that decide exactly whether you have to redo a thesis or you can continue with the same thesis with some modifications, or you have to completely go through the process without having any hiccup. So different stages with which we need to look the possibility of doing this, what you would say, literature. So let me start this, what you would say, the screen connecting to. Hopefully you would be able to see the content of it
Yes.
here. Right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Sir, yes,
Yeah.
great. It's a Word document, right, sir?
No. It's going to present. It will slowly, one by one will be coming into the picture.
Right.
So let me start with, first of all, what I would say, the content which I'm going to tell you, which is mostly connected to literature review. So first, let us understand one this aspect, like why we have to do this literature review. This is the first question we need to ask ourselves. Every PhD research scholar or MSc postgraduate research scholar, anybody, those who are entering into this literature review session, the PhD sessions or any kind of graduation or post-graduation or any kind of super post-graduations level of research, anything you get into, what exactly you need to know is why we have to get into this kind of literature review. What is the purpose of it and likewise. So here, I would like to take you to some little bit considerations about what you would say, literature review and like this. After that, I'll be going hardcore practical things exactly that you have. That is most important thing to you. You'll be getting hundreds and thousands of what you would say literature review connected things and likewise from internet. This is not important to me. What is important to me is you should get a proper practical guidance connected with literature review. So what I'm going to tell you is, okay, we have to start our research. The most important aspect that we have to look at is the problem. There should be a strong problem. And that problem invites certain investigation. That problem, if can be attended by anybody, any experts, without having an investigation, that kind of research inputs or that kind of topics are not to be considered for the research. So in PhD level and likewise, what we exactly expect is a long-term research needed, a long-term involvement into several aspects needed, and that would ultimately lead to a kind of investigation, and that investigation should give you certain output, and that output exactly leading to some stakeholders solution. This is exactly the way we have to look at things. So we have to approach the entire research journey systematically. That's what people make use of different terms like systematic literature review or literature review or review of literature. There's a lot of things. People are basically, what you're doing is whether the topic selected is doable or not, whether the topic is researchable or not, whether the topic is leading to certain implications or not. Stakeholders are waiting for you to get that results, and they can take some decisions connected with that or not. Some sort of things you need to look at it. So for that, we need to look at systematic literature review. What are the things we need to look at literature review? I'll explain to you later. So after literature review work and likewise, what are the things we are looking upon inside this literature review? We are looking upon, first of all, what is the problem and which are the constructs, connected with the problem. Got it. Which are the constructs connected with the problem? A problem, it may be very complex, extremely complex. And don't think that you can solve the problem by looking at the problem basically. but you have to look at the realities connected with the problem. Realities. So what are the realities connected? This I used to tell in a simple way. Usually, I used to explain this way. Take an example. A student's performance is going down. That problem can be precipitated by, it can be through family, it can be through students' effort, it can be maybe because of the library resources, all kinds of infrastructure facilities are not coming. It may be connected with the, what you would say, the parents, or many factors. It can be connected with the teachers. So when you look at a problem, it can be multi-causative. So what is the purpose of literature review? We need to look at, we need to grab maximum constructs. Don't limit. You got a frame first. Based on that frame, you do the literature review. This is not the way to do the research exactly. What exactly you have to do is, without having a frame, without having a research frame or a conceptual frame itself, you need to approach a problem. When you approach a problem, you don't have basically any research framework, nothing at all before you. So what you have to do that particular time, spend as much as time in library or in, what you would say, certain kind of online databases which is available to you in laptop. It can be through Billy's, or it can be through, what you would say, Emerald or Science Direct, Proquest, EBSCO. A lot of databases and publishers are there. You need to spend much time for that to understand there is a problem and how the problem has been attended by many research scholars of the past, how they have interacted with the problem. Some people interacted through qualitative approach. Some people approach through quantitative approach. Some people with the support of case studies alone. Some people might have approached the research through mixed method. So all these papers, all these research papers of the past available in database. So that database you have to approach first. You need to go for getting the constructs properly. After that, first you get the constructs. Constructs, IV related constructs are available. DV related constructs are available. So individual constructs, you need to get it first of all. Once you get, you further differentiate what are the causative constructs and what are the effect constructs. What do you mean by research basically? In a simple term, research is variable analysis. Simply speaking, you don't have to look at Uma Sekharan's definition or Hayes and Ringel or anybody's definition. Like, you don't have to look at anything. In a quantitative research, basically a variable analysis, that's all research. A research, you are doing a research basically. What is, certain things are existing already in literature. That is allowing you to do a repeated research or a research or not. This is exactly you are doing through literature review. So arriving at a model and then go for literature is not good. Instead of that, without having any model, research framework, we call it as, you have to approach the literature review. So collect the effect factors and collect the causative factors and segregate it. Even hundreds and thousands of independent factors and hundreds and thousands of dependent factors, you get it. What you will do, this is the question, this many factors I cannot study. Constructs available, instruments available, but I cannot study my limited period of 3 years. In that, I have to finish everything by 2.5 years, and the last 6 months I will be spending for correction, fine tuning, and make it as a final product. So that particular time, look at the constructs. You look at the constructs when you start with, and IVDV segregations and likewise. Then once you get the constructs, the second stage, we call it as a relationship. You have to get that IV constructs should be connected with the DV constructs, and that is the thing you're supposed to do it. So literature review will support you to connect certain type of literature that will be the supporting evidence. Everything in research should be based on evidence. So you will be getting evidence that there is a relationship exists between this factor and this factor. And that kind of literature, we call it as argumentative literature. That I will be explaining to you later. So once you get the constructs, you try to relate it together. You try to relate it together. Once you get the relationship, it will be moved to a conceptual frame. Means that
Sir,
constructs.
sorry to interrupt. Sir, is your PPT slide moving, sir?
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
it's my what you would say.
Right.
Interaction is going on. I will be slowly. It will be coming up.
Yes,
Sure.
just want to reconfirm. Thank you very much. Sorry for that.
Thank you. Sometimes it happens. Please give me the feedback also. Okay.
Right.
So constructs, we got it. IV construct, DV constructs from literature. That is the first task of every researcher. And you try to integrate it. Once you try to integrate, you establish a path between IV and DV. So you cannot fix anything by yourself in research. You need to get the supporting evidence. That it is to be obtained from argumentative literature or hypothesis-based literature. That I will come back later. So once you get the constructs, once you get the relationship, the next stage is building up the frame, conceptual frame. Once you get the frame, the next task for you is get a theory, because lot of constructs you are getting, you don't know where to start and how to fix these factors, which one is prominent, which one is not prominent, no idea. That particular time, every quantitative research scholar has to look into theory. So theory-based literature review is coming there. Okay, any quantitative researcher, if they want to, he or she wants to do that research, a theory is must or multiple theories must. I will tell you examples with which how we can. These are all the things you need to collect from the literature review, systematic literature review. So concepts or constructs, relationship, establishing literature, then research frame. That means conceptual frames, you got it. And now you look at the theory. And after getting the theory, what you have to look at it? You have to look at literature connected with instruments, literature connected with methodology, literature connected with analysis. Everywhere you need to get the literature. So if you think that a literature review portion is the second chapter of your thesis, forget it. It's not like that. Start from the chapter 1 to up to implication part of the thesis. Chapter 1 is introduction. Chapter 2 is literature review. Chapter 3 is methodology. Chapter 4 is analysis and interpretation. Chapter 5 is discussion. And 6 is implication and conclusion. Everywhere the literature is percolating. So that is the purpose of literature review. So systematic literature review clearly indicate arriving at the construct and concept, arriving at relationship properly with supporting evidence, arriving at relationship based research frame, then arriving at a proper theory and arriving at proper instruments. These are minimum things you need to know. So what is this literature review basically means? It's a summary and explanation of the complete and current state of knowledge. So if you want to know the research gap, and likewise that I'm going to explain to you later, a gap, see, somewhere certain kind of topics till up to 2022, when you look at it, where exactly it is standing, where exactly that literature is, that means the topic connected literature standing. And some sort of gaps in the literature you can see. What is this gap? Basically call it as inconsistencies of the past authors. Somebody told yes, somebody told no, somebody told insignificant, some sort of or negative relation. A lot of mixed empirical opinions are there. All right. So that we call it as the gap. So arriving at the gap is ultimately the purpose of literature review. Okay. So for that, we need to know what exactly existing now. What exactly existing now, based on that only, you can go towards the next level. Okay, how I can approach if I connect these constructs, if I get this theory, if I get this relationship, if I get this, what you would say, instruments, all these things you can think later only. So where that particular topic is standing now. So usually we tell about maybe 2019 to 2022 still okay for a good research thesis. Why I'm telling you, because a literature review, when you talk about state of the art knowledge, current state of the art knowledge connected with that. So 2022 we expect Juries expect 2022 literature because you started the literature 2022. So when you're going for proposal defense, it will be minimum. I'm telling you, it will be going ahead 2021 mid or 2022. So 2 years gap already started. Okay. So 2022 to 2024 literature you need to have in that. So when you finish the full thesis, it will be going to 2026. So that particular time, you need to have what you would say 2022 to 2026 literature. But any literature which is about, below what you would say 2000, around 3 years and below, which is not considered as a literature review, as a current what you would say state of the knowledge. So we need to get literature review between, if you're submitting, if you have a plan to submit 2026 means that you need to have that particular thesis at least 2023 to 2026. That kind of literature should be there. So the time you are submitting a synopsis for defense, proposal defense, that is not the final one. Literature review is unending. Start from the beginning till up to proposal defense, a kind of literature review coming that will be redundant when you go for the final thesis. So every time a research scholar should abrupt. Otherwise, what is happening after the literature review? You are not connected with existing changes which are happening in the variable. I'll tell you how these are happening. So the difficult task is that when a phenomenon is changing continuously, if you don't pick up every moment, if you don't pick up the right factors, then definitely you are going to get your thesis redundant because outdated variables are coming into your thesis. If you take the variables which are coming from 2010, 1999, and likewise, after that, a lot of conceptual, what you would say, conceptual literature might have come up. Conceptual integration might have come up. I'll give you one example. Let me go back to my this one. Why I'm telling you about this one. Let me just talk about CS and CL. Okay, let it be like that. Let me writing. Okay, I'll give you one example of it. Introspective section literature, the perspective literature arriving at. Okay, you just look at this. I hope you can see this one, correct? Can anybody respond me? Can you see this window?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good,
yes, sir.
good. Thank you. So you look at, I'm going to, this is what exactly, I don't want to talk PPT too much. There is no meaning at all. Let me show you some good examples how we can get appropriate constructs. Okay, take an example. We have a concept. I'm just pulling it a little bit in. You can see over here. I think now you can see perfectly. So you look at here, there is a absorptive capacity is one of the what you would say concept we are exactly measuring or integrated into our research. So look at what we have to do in literature review. There should be a table. You don't have to write and die. No need at all. What you have to do, systematically put it across in a table. So take an example. We started. This is a thesis example I'm giving you. So it's long back it has conducted. So Cohen and Levinthal, ACAP means absorptive. A means absorptive. CAP means capacity. That refers in a definition. We got a definition from these people. So when you read this one, what are the things you are going to, what are the dimensions? You know the difference between the concept and dimensions now. With all this dimension, a concept is formed. Multiple dimensions. Some concepts which are connected unidimensional in nature. Some of them are multidimensional in nature. So when you look at this absorptive capacity, this is multidimensional in nature. So with 1989 and 90s and likewise, when you look at the literature review, you can see these kind of definitions, and you get recognition, assimilation, application. That is defined by that way. But when you look at 1990s, you can look at the 1997. See, the definition is changed little bit. Here, recognition, assimilation, and application is connected with the technology, connected with the know-how. We call it as absorptive capacity. Take an example, industry. When industry is immediately going for automation or robotic applications and likewise, people in that organization or the capacity of that organization to absorb the robotic capabilities, robotic technology connected with the manpower operations, they may not be having that. So the absorptive capacity of that change limited exactly. So recognition of that idea, assimilation of it, application of it. Some people defined it as acquisition, dissemination, technical competence. Look at the difference between these two. But if you get a literature from here, then you will be limited your variable only with 3 factors. You look, this is the problem I'm telling. When you define why we have to do literature review, this is the purpose. Literature is continuously moving on. Progressively, it is moving on. So when you have to approach state-of-the-art literature, indicate what? How that concept has moved from years and years and years and years, and how it is defined now. That is your concern. So if you miss it, if you miss the past, then you cannot properly define. You cannot properly define the concept in 2022. So when you look at 1997, it is defined in this way. But when you look at 1998, acquisition, dissemination, there is these two accepted, but there is another word also incorporated by Lane and Lubatkin, and that to be integrated to understand this particular construct. But when you look at in 2002, 90 is gone, 2000 came. So recognition, assimilation, and transformation. See, another is coming, transformation and exploitation. Another 2 factors identified by some other research scholars and integrated into it. See, now you are so confused. You are so confused. You are getting constructs and constructs and constructs and dimensions and dimensions and dimensions. What you will do? This is the perfect stage of a PhD thesis or a research scholar. If you get into confusion, you are in the right track. If everything is clear, you are trying to fix the thesis. It's very clear. It's very clear. So confusion is part and parcel of literature review process. It's okay, accepted. So when you go to 2016, recognition, assimilation, transformation, exploitation. But 2007, Todorova and Durizin explained recognition, assimilation, they're also once again repeated. But when you look upon 2012, recognition, assimilation, maintenance, another factor added, reactivation, this is another variable, transmutation, another dimension added, application is already existing. So when you look upon these, factors, and likewise you can easily understand. See, this is the one I think I have deleted a few portion. So this is the way you need to get your literature connected with constructs. So the most important, when you have to tell your jury, your supervisor, sir, I want to make a research on absorptive capacity. The supervisor maybe, how you got it? Show me the chronological order of the progressive construct development or integration. So start from 1989 to 2022. Who are the people exactly defined these particular concepts and how they have defined that? You can reflect over here. What are the dimensions which have integrated, and what exactly the contribution they have made? If this is the case, how the inconsistencies connected with the constructs are existing in literature, and how it's creating what you would say confusion within me and all the research scholars. If it would be like that, then hence, because this construct in this form to be studied, you're pitching your proposal now. This has been studied by past research scholars in a varied proportion. Same concept of absorptive capacity, but defined by different people in a different way, and they got this concept in a different manner. So if I am not integrating all these aspects, or if I don't understand which are the factors applicable in Bangalore location, or it is in a Mumbai location, or it is in a Lucknow location, I'm not sure about it. Hence, I need to integrate all these concepts, and based on that, I have to do this research. So this is the way you have to fix your constructs connected. I hope you have understood. So this to be there in your literature review properly. This is systematic literature review. We call it as start from years to years to years, how that construct progressively built up that you have to explain. You got it? So this is one thing I would like to explain when connected to literature review, and likewise. So when you have to go through literature review, the most important aspect is you have to look at databases. So here the databases are connected. I'll be showing. See, the most important databases I can show you is either ERIC or PsychoInfo, Social Life, Social Science Citation Index, SSCI, Emerging ESSCI also, EBSCO, another database. You can also look at dissertation abstracts. You can look at Web of Science. That is, the publisher is exactly Clarivate Analytics, but the journals, they are exactly the rating agencies. Basically, we call it as Web of Science. So publisher and the kind of rating agencies and the journals. Web of Science rated journals means that that's the topmost high quality journals. Google Scholar, then Science Direct, Scopus, Procast, Web of Knowledge, Sage. So in order to approach systematically, first you have to look at is you have to get this database. This we call it as database. Data, what do you mean by data? Constructs, relationship, theory, okay, research frames, all right, findings, implications, designs, methodology, all are inside every what you would say the paper you are exactly evaluating, which consists of all these aspects. So depends upon your area, engineering, and likewise you can look into IEEE. Okay, you can look into what you would say EBSCO or Procast if it is more connected with business studies. You can also follow Web of Science and Scopus. Scopus having much higher level of journals in comparison with Web of Science. Web of Science is so rigid in comparison with Scopus. Science Direct also producing so many business as well as any kind of what you would say research papers, case studies, periodicals, conceptual papers. A lot of variations are there in literature review. But basically, we look at we look at journals a lot. So always remember, don't got too much things from textbooks and likewise. Don't got. What we require is empirical observations. Empirical observations are only in those literature uh, where the journals articles are published. So the journal consists of only the journals, research journals you have to approach. If the journals, when you're talking about, don't go to Q3, Q4 level journals and likewise. Still, it is maybe if you don't have, you can go. I'm not telling don't go and likewise, but it will be more effective when you go to Q1 and Q2 level. So what is this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 levels and likewise? Journals are rated based on these Q1, Q2. What that means, extreme quality journals. You can see that high impact and high citations are coming. That is Q1 journals. And Q1, Q2 is a little bit lower level. Q3 is a little bit lower level. Q4, I don't suggest you to approach that journals. Why? Because these people take the money, publish the articles, and after that, they may leave the arena. Next year, they don't subscribe it. So that cannot be a scopus. That's a fake journal. That turned to be a predator journal in the coming days. So don't go to Q4 journals. If you want to publish also, don't go to Q4 level. Q3 onwards you go. Q3 to Q4 level, it may go down, but long time it will be taking. But they will maintain certain time. So you need to follow that particular aspects of getting into right journals. I may suggest you to follow Science Direct, Web of Science, Scopus. Amazing. Sage, Willis, Emerald, quite good. So they are all publishers, but they are all having good journals. So approach Q1, Q2. And if you are not able to access, because some of the journals you have to, some of the issues and likewise you have to download, you have to pay money a lot. So the university system should have proper, what you would say, database. They should procure at least Scopus and WOS for their growth so that the research scholars as well as the faculty members can access it and can download it freely for a, take an example, maybe around 29 to 30 lakhs rupees are coming for 1 year subscription of Scopus and WOS. It's huge amount of money for the management. So have to look at this aspect. But if that things are coming, of course, the possibility to get into NIRF and a lot of other options are very high. So we can invest on these kind of options so that the research scholars will be getting benefit. Individual subscriptions also very high. So I may not suggest you to go with that. So you understand what do you mean by database and literature and likewise. So Q1, Q2, Q3 level. So for that also I can show you what is this Q1 and Q2. You can go to SCIMAGO, SIMAGO. SIMAGO journals you can just go through. Here you will be getting the list of journals. Which journal, take an example, you want SIMAGO, SIMAGO journals. SIMAGO, here I'm putting, I'm doing a research on entrepreneurship. So, okay, I'm just putting here, you will be getting, you can go through, see a lot of SIMAGO list. I can just show you here. See, you will be getting a lot of journal ranking here. So here you can see H index, how many H index this particular article, this particular journal. This is journal, this is a journal, and where exactly it is standing, the Q1 level, and this is exactly the high index. From this journal only 73, but you look upon this journal around 190. Second one, 209, somebody taking finance. You have to go through these kind of journals exactly. So I'm just going inside first. To look at the rating, you can see over these journals. This one I'm talking about the Q, the topmost journal in the world. So here, the impact factor is very high. So if you want to, if you're so confused on variables, factors that you have to do research, you have to go to this kind of journals. If you go through Q4, Q3 journals, hanky-panky type of what you would say factors will be coming. But if you go through these kind of journals, they have R1, review 1, review 2, review 3, review 4, or that particular level only they are publishing certain articles. So completely verified through peer review process. So these factors are quite applicable in the contemporary era. Got it? So you need to go through the Q1 journal, high index, how many? So this one is one of the best exactly. One of the best, you can get almost 299 high index papers, and you can see over here the citable documents are coming last 3 years around 203, and see last 2 years it is 7.01 level it is coming up. So but in comparison with academic it is less, but it is having more number of referential things are coming into the picture. So based on that it should go down like this. So many journals under your domain will be getting, and after that you can go to, take an example, if you can segregate this also. You can put like certain type of categories, only open access journals you can go here. All right, only Web of Science journals only you want to refer means you can go here. So this is the way you have to segregate, first of all, right kind of articles. This is the first task of you in systematic literature review. Okay, so I have explained to you this one. Now you need to look at there is a taxonomy which is called as Cooper's taxonomy. Why this literature review is needed? All right. So here the first is the focus. The focus of the literature review is research outcomes, research methods, the theories used, the constructs, the constructs used by the past research scholars. What are the practical implications? What are the practical implications? How that particular construct has led to application side. So the focus of you people when you select certain kind of constructs through the literature review, systematic literature review, is focus on research outcomes. So why you have to look at the research outcome before you look at the literature review? Because that particular research scholar might have incorporated many factors, but some of the factors in their study turn to be redundant and it doesn't have any significance, but some other factors turn to be significant. So you can easily get, when you look at the research outcomes, so when you get an article, go to the research outcomes directly, the findings, and look at what are the variables they have incorporated and how that variable tend to be significant in the study. All right. Second, what are the methods these people have used? Had they used qualitative literature review, qualitative research methods, or had they used quantitative literature review and quantitative research methods, or had they used any kind of philosophical approaches like critical realism, that is case studies when you have to do the research, and likewise you have to follow functional realism or critical realism or realism, and likewise the research philosophy is different. So these particular time, the methods you are using, the methods that also you identify, it's not It's not, you have to look at only the literature review portion to collect the construct and to establish the relationship. Most important thing is you have to look at the findings. Look at the findings, and from there you have to pick up the factors, the constructs, either IV or DV, then the methods, quanti or quali, then the theories, which theory used by the research scholar, and how that theory turned to be an appropriate, or what you would say, appropriate application turned to be applied still now in that particular context, how it is turned to be relevant, all right, conflicting theories. Then you also have to look at how this constructs relationship is exactly leading to certain kind of managerial decision making, managerial implications. How these, when you relate these two constructs and likewise, how it turned to be a practical implication means that business performance is going down. Where it is, business performance is the matter for a company. Every business, every private sector institutions, or whether it is a college or it is any industry, they have to look on the profit. If the profit is going down, definitely it is having its impact in every realm. So they have to control that particular aspect. So if business, what are the factors with which business performance is going down? Which theory I can use it? Look at RBV theory, resource-based view theory, RBV theory. What this theory is talking about, Bane in 1972 or 1982, he has exactly mentioned this theory, and this theory is very important theory in strategic management. Any student is doing this strategic management can refer this theory, and it is having high impact. What this theory is talking about, that you have to collect through literature review, theoretical aspects. I'll come back role of theories later. So when you have to look at this, the kind of components and likewise, the theories, the relationships and likewise that you have to establish. So here, the theory of RBV indicate there are two sub-dimensions are there. One is called as capabilities. Another is called as resources. When resources and capabilities are coming together, it will be leading to competitive advantage and it will be leading to business performance. Once you define in this way the business performance through competitive advantage in the market, then you have to look at which are the factors under the capabilities coming. Is it technical capability? Is it financial capability? Is it human resource capability? Or is it operational capability? All the capabilities, we need to look at it. That is exactly, you need to drag it from literature review. And what are the resource element? Is it the technical resources you're talking about? Is it robotic application? Is it artificial intelligence or any kind of AI applications? What you are talking about in resources? So when you take about a retail industry, when you talk about what you would say iron and ore industry or any industry, it has its own psychometric properties. So we need to look at through the literature review, start from 80s to 22, how this that means theoretical progression happened, what all the theories outdated, what are the theories tend to be outdated and new theories have come up, how theories have progressively moved upon, that we need to look at it. This is the part of theory. So I'll come back to this slide later. Then I have to look at when I'm talking about theories. I'm talking about theory. You ask me, sir, what is this theory then? Theory consists of basically four components. Theory consists of four components. The first component is the construct itself. Construct. So you have a theory. You tell that I have a theory to substantiate my frame. This indicates I'm very clear which theory you are using. Okay, this is strategic management theory, or this is marketing theory, or this is HR theory. Then I can easily understand as a jury what she is talking about, what he is talking about. Theory means first constructs. Identify the research scholar, identify the concepts where it is identified through literature only. You have to look at the literature and identify the theories. Second, once you get the constructs, you have to look at the relationship between the two constructs. I told you how you get the competitive advantage. You get the competitive advantage only when your capabilities connected with factors and resource connected with factors, when they try to interact with a competitive advantage variable, then only it will be going to business performance. You got it? So the most important aspect is you need to establish the relationship also. First is how the theory is going to help you. Any quantitative researcher, theory is important. If not theory, your thesis is almost gone out of the evaluation. In abroad, if you send your thesis, we don't even touch at all. We will send you back the, what you would say, the thesis back to you to redo it once again. So look at the theory. A theory consists of constructs and relationship. Then after that, you need to talk about the logic. Take an example, one theory. Maybe that is suitable in this context, but may not be suitable in the other context. You got it. So when contexts are changing, that relationship also changing, the concepts also changing, the logic also changing. You got it? The third aspect, logic. The fourth aspect, we call it as the construct. The last aspect, it is connected with what? Logic and boundaries. In which boundary you're talking about? Is you're talking about psychological boundaries or sociological boundaries or entrepreneurial boundaries or economic boundaries or mathematical boundaries? Which boundary, which discipline with which? What is the scope of that? So theory talks about all these things. So I would like to take you to this level. What is the role of this theory? What is theory basically? It is a set of interrelated concepts. You look at it. I told you it's a concept, a collection of concepts. Exactly. The theory integrate that. Okay. It consists of propositions. What is this proposition? It's a relationship. It is a relationship between IV and DV. That is called proposition. What is the difference between proposition and a hypothesis is that you're proposing a statement that need to be tested. Okay, if testing property is there, if you can test it, then it is turned to be empirical plane. That relationship go down to empirical plane. But you don't test it. You just tell there is relationship between IV and TV. There is relationship between entrepreneurial orientation and entrepreneurial intention. You are just telling like that. You're not telling anything. You're not going to test it. Means that it is in the conceptual plane. There are two planes. One is conceptual plane and there is empirical plane. In the conceptual plane, we got propositions. In the empirical plane, we got hypothesis. So if you don't have qualitative research scholars go with propositions, quantitative research scholars go with the down one, empirical observations, because they got the constructs, they got the relationship, and they got proper theory, the proper relationship and proper logic and boundaries. And finally, they got the proper instruments to test it. These are all coming from literature. These are all coming from literature. Got it? So propositions, you got it. You explain that. And then after that, what? It leads to an effect or a prediction. So theories are using basically to test the relationship between independent and dependent variable, moderating and dependent variable, mediating and dependent variable, or it can be from independent to mediating to dependent variable. Any kind of predictions, if you're trying to make, you need to have theories. So this theory consists of basically, I tell you this one, basically these are the building blocks of a theory that I was explaining to you. It consists of many factors that I told you. Here it is coming. It is connected to what you would say, one, constructs. What theory? That means to capture the what element. What are the constructs? The proposition means how I am integrating these two, how that turned to be a relationship. Logic, why that is important. Which context that is important, why these concepts are important. Certain concepts which are in 1980s and 1990s relevant may not be now. That's what I told you. A progression of literature is needed that you have to incorporate in your thesis. And you need to fix the boundary. Whom for I am, that means when you do this research, who are the people going to get benefit out of it? Who are the people going to get benefit? And when I have to do this research, who are the people to be integrated for the responses, where I can conduct the research? So a theory is giving you all these explanations. A theory is giving you all explanations. So why this theory needed? You need to understand a quantitative research scholar. A quantitative research scholar has to engage with the theories, So theory consists of these three elements. You need to always keep in your mind. So if there is, this is what I'm trying to explain. So you need to, okay, this is constructs. Okay, this one I'm telling you, the difference between a proposition and a hypothesis is that when you start the literature review, okay, through the journals, when you read the article, you get the constructs. What are you trying? When you grab the constructs, you try to relate the construct A with construct B. Okay, so when you just relate or associate, correlate between construct A and construct B, construct A is the cause and construct B is the effect. So when you just do it in the conceptual plane, we call it as theoretical plane, it's okay. So that exactly leading to qualitative research. But you look at down, we never tell it as a kind of construct. Usually it is using in qualitative proposition. But when you have to do it in quantitative research, we call it as variables. What is variable? Something which is changing, a behavior, a smile, a cry, or a situation, anything changing, something which is dynamic, volatile, that is called as a variable. All right, so it can be a causative variable, it can be a causative variable, or it can be an affect variable. So the purpose of literature review is to, first of all, identify the constructs, then relate it is in between the two. Okay, you did that, and you got a conceptual frame. Now you have to look at the theory. You got a construct, you got the relationship. Now you have to look at the logic and boundaries. Once you get that, only you are supposed to go down to empirical plane. So in the empirical plane means experimental, something which is based on empirical observation, means that you have to go to the field, you with a standardized instrument. You have to go to the field, you have to collect the data, and it may take around 4 to 5 weeks duration. One time you are going to the field and collect the data and come back and do the analysis. And that kind of plane, we call it as empirical or testing plane. Experimental plane, testing plane, or any kind of words you can use it. So you need to understand the difference between these two. So what is the purpose of literature review? Literature review is basically to make your thesis move from the conceptual frame to the empirical frame, conceptual frame to the theoretical frame, the research frame to the testing frame. This is that movement to be facilitated only through literature review. Everything you are testing, everything you have incorporated, the relationship between the variable, that need to have a proper supporting evidence from the literature. For example, if you talk about moderation, this I'm talking about direct relationship. Let us have an idea about, if you talk about moderation and mediation or some sort of things. Okay, if I have that, okay, look at this. I hope you can see it. If you take an example, nowadays it's a fashion, it's a kind of fashion to integrate moderation and mediation. But you need to understand one thing. When you have to integrate a moderator or a mediator variable, the first question, show me how many theses, show me how many dissertations you have evaluated or the literature you have evaluated where this particular variable is acting as a mediator or is acting as a moderator. Tell me that. If you don't get this literature, you cannot integrate any moderator or a mediator into the frame. This is one thing. So here, you look at here, which author is exactly explaining that. So here, absorptive capacity, take an example, prior studies on impact of absorptive capacities on organizational output. So here, absorptive capacity moderates. So this acting as a moderation. Somewhere it can be mediation. So you need to understand the difference between the mediation and the moderation. So if you don't have any idea, you may put a mediating variable into the moderating testing plane, and likewise, this is creating big issue. So which are the variables I can integrate as moderator, which are the variables I can get it as a mediator? You cannot tell anything. Instead of that, your literature should tell it out. So how we can get it? Look at this. I'm just showing you this one, a little bit zoomed way. You can see here, ICP acts as a moderator, but the ACP act as mediator by another author. Look at, it's leading to inconsistency. Wherever there is inconsistency, I'm telling you, all inconsistencies are your strength and opportunity to do the research. If you find out inconsistencies, you can tell that, see, there are differences between different authors on using absorptive capacity as what? Moderator, mediator. Some use moderator, some use as it as mediate. Likewise, you are telling, I'm not sure in Bangalore location, in Delhi location, when I'm doing the Gurgaon area, and likewise, right? How it can be, I'm not sure about it. All right. So that you need to get it through here. So the key results you need to get it, moderator, mediator, all these things. How many research scholars put absorptive capacity as mediator? How many research scholars put appropriately as moderator? Likewise, you need to get it. Where exactly they have used it? So you have to put, if your studies are more connected with institutions and the firms and likewise, you need to pull it like that. So that you need to get it. That you need to get it to incorporate it in your PhD thesis. So if you take an example, that also leading to the measurement, to see the measure, how they are measuring it. They are measuring absorptive capacity through R&D, but some people through training intensity, some people through scales that is connected with external knowledge and into new products. Some people, of course, once again back to R&D. Some people into dimensions, okay, different dimensions they are integrating with. So you need to look at the possibility, firms, education, staff development. Sorry. So these kind of things, you need to have a clear-cut idea. Why we have to do literature review? We need to get a clarity on, I'm doing a study in retail industry. So how many authors in the past has used the kind of absorptive capacity in retail sector as moderator, as mediator? You cannot use that kind of literature which have used in manufacturing sector. You cannot use that because your study point is retail sector, a service sector. Manufacturing literature and service literature is different. So you have to fully focus into service oriented literature, service based literature. Exactly. Got it? So this is the way you have to tell in your thesis systematically who are the authors I have referred into, and what is exactly the construct, what are the key results I got it, what kind of level exactly it is applied, and what kind of measurement did it. You don't have to tell anything to your supervisor. You are very clear, and the supervisor also will be getting clarity on what exactly you're doing. But if you tell something to supervisor, we cannot blame the supervisors many times because you're not doing the work properly. So research scholars have to engage properly these kind of things. Another literature review is connected, what you would say, I can show you. You need to have, take an example I'm taking. When you collect systematically literature review, you need to have mixed literature. Mixed literature means that in between the construct, the relationship, some people call it as negative relationship. Some people call it as positive relationship. Some people mixed results. So the most important aspect, when you have to, this is called inconsistent literature, or this is called as argumentative literature. I will come back once again. Let me show you one example more. Okay, hopefully it will be there. Okay, this is one of my study long back. It is, I think it is published in 2015 or somewhere exactly, 16, 15, I have published. This is a Scopus publication. So impact of this Islamic finance ecosystem, and that means how this Islamic finance ecosystem is existing and how the people absorb it or adopt it to do the business, and what is the role of the supporting system, business support system given by these organizations. This is most important aspect. So we need to look at this possibility. We need to look at, so this is the topic I'm doing the research. So I'm showing you a research frame exactly connected here. The factors which I have incorporated here, it is attitude, social influence, and business support. So basically, attitude and social influence is leading to intention. So I need to get literature. Connected with the concepts like attitude. I need to have the definition, conceptual definition, and at the same time, empirical. That means conceptual and operational definitions. I need to get it. So I have to go through, first of all, in literature review, conceptual definitions and operational definitions. Then after that, I have to connect these two. This we call it as hypothesis-based literature, connecting IV and DV. The first one I told you only connected with one variable, no relationship at all. That we call it as conceptual definitions. But when you connect it with the two, IV and DV, we call it as hypothesis-based literature, or we call it as argumentative literature. Argument, you are trying to get an argument that, what are these arguments? That's what I told you in that table, in the last table. Somebody opposed this relationship between this and this. Attitude doesn't have any significant relationship with intention to adopt Islamic banking. But some people they taught, yes, there is strong and direct relationship between the positive attitude towards the Islamic banking and its adoption. All right. On the other side, social influence, reference group. Some people, my family members, or my teachers, or my friends in the bank, and likewise, those people, they're referring positively, means that, of course, I'll go for adoption. If not, I'm not going for that. So this reference group also influence my decision whether, as a small entrepreneur, I would like to start a business. I may go, I may not go. So this is exactly the frame. But you look at here, business support. Here, this is acting as a moderator. Why this is turned to be as a moderator? Because it is not influencing backward. It is not influencing backward exactly. It is influencing only towards the DV. If a factor only influencing towards the DV, it is called as moderator. If this is influencing this, and then here, if this is influencing this, and then here, it is called as mediator. So when you collect the literature, you need to get proper differentiation between the literature connected with the constructs, the literature connected with the relationship, and the literature connected with the moderating and mediating relationship. This also you need to establish. So what is this argumentative literature means? This also you have to connect it. So this is the crux of any research. This is the crux of any research. Argumentative, what is this? You have to talk about inconsistencies, contradictions, controversies, the conflicts existing between two authors, that in your thesis, that is called as argumentative literature. Some people told there is strong positive relationship between IV and DV, attitude and intention. But some people told no relationship. Means that it is inconsistent. The findings are inconsistent. So if you don't get that literature, it's very difficult to proceed your, research frame. So we will be asking you this question: have you got this inconsistency? That inconsistency, we call it as research gap. If there is inconsistency, that is a positive point for you to consider it as a gap. So here you are putting this as a moderator. It is a multi-dimensional in nature, and it is influencing the intention to adopt. So this is exactly the frame. So argumentatively, let me give you one example of this. What do you mean by, now you have a concept in you, the frame, attitude and intention. Attitude and intention is connected with the Islamic finance. Whether they are going to, the small entrepreneurs, small business owners, are they going to, adopt Islamic banking for their, or Islamic finance products for their, business or not? This is exactly the question. So you look at this literature. Adoption of financial support depends on the favorable and unfavorable attitude of customers. Unfavorable attitude. So you connect the literature with the attitude now first. Connected with the financial services. Different financial products are available in financial banking system. Mudraba, Mushraka, lot of things available. Depends on you to select on that. In their investigation, Amin and et al. 2011 suggests that attitude has a significant positive effect on Islamic financing. Means that this is a positive relationship. You got a statement which is indicating positive relationship. But on the other hand, here, contrary to the argument, it is suggested that Islamic banking is not able to offer services to all potential customers because customers do not have enough knowledge about it. So this is contrary to that. Even though it is attitude is significant, but they're telling that the services offered are not that significant. So it can create problems in the attitude. So here, customers are not provided with information and are not acquainted with Islamic finance banking products and services, and hence because of that, they're not taking up. So this also, don't tell anything by yourself. You don't have any right in your thesis to tell yourself anything. Please remember that. You need to get the supporting evidence, reason literature, 2022, 2021 literature before you go for proposal defense. And after the proposal defense, 23, 24 literature should be there. That's what PhD thesis is getting 3 to 4 years. It's not like you can work and you can do the PhD. That is half commitment only. You need to get a full-time job for it. That's what scholarships are allocated. So you need to spend your time for literature review and get all kinds of inconsistencies based literature where you have selected the context exactly between IV and DV. So contextualizing the pro and contra argument. This is I'm talking about argumentative literature. You need to have this take an example. If you have 10 hypotheses, at least in your literature review, 50 pages only allocate. Every thesis, you need to have 4 to 5 pages of literature connecting argumentative literature. Argumentative literature indicate the pro and contra arguments, and that to be exactly positioned. So that will be helpful for the supervisors of you. Oh my God, there are a lot of inconsistencies existing. Maybe my student might have taken the right variable and there is a positioning possible, research positioning possible. So they can also judge on you. We need to get it. So hence, because of these inconsistencies which we cited over here, it is assumed in this context that attitude of SME entrepreneurs may have a favorable, we are neutral. We are neutral. So maybe it is connected, maybe it is not. I'm not telling. Hence, this particular study poses following alternative hypothesis. Alternative or null hypothesis. Usually, we always do statistical analysis only with null hypothesis. We are not doing with alternative hypothesis. It doesn't matter you pose alternative hypothesis. It doesn't matter at all. At the end of the day, we are going with only null hypothesis. So you can use here, attitude has a direct and positive relationship with the intention to adopt Islamic finance among industry entrepreneurs among SMEs in Malaysia. So this is the way you have to arrive at each hypothesis. So if you have 10 hypotheses, we need to have 10 small paragraph, inconsistency, arrive at the hypothesis. Small paragraph, inconsistencies, arrive at the next hypothesis. Likewise, every hypothesis, you need to get the inconsistencies, contradictions, conflicts, mixed empirical opinion. And all these we call it as a research gap. These inconsistencies, exactly we call it as research gap. So I'm going to take you to the research gap section exactly. I can show you what do you mean by, that's what I told you mostly. I'll be taking the sessions through practical things rather than what do you mean by research gap, and likewise, that you can learn it from literature reviews and likewise. But here, the most important aspect, you need to know what exactly I'm talking about, argumentative literature. Then I have to talk about, first of all, before I talk about this research gap, I need to, okay, let me come with the research gap first of all. So here, the research gap indicate what? This is I'm talking about is the identification of opportunities. This is we are talking about. We don't have any opportunity so far. If any topic is coming to research world, immediately crores and millions of people immediately snatch that particular topic and they start doing it. So you will be knowing that particular topic later only. It has already started. So what exactly you are looking upon in literature review? In literature review, you are looking upon the leftover of somebody. They had the meal, anything remaining from that leaf or not to have me. This is exactly literature review. So you are, or if something is still remaining there and the person has not touched that meal, you take that and you do the research in an elaborated way. You got it? So if you don't look at the literature review properly, then you won't be able to identify the opportunities waiting for you too. So research gap is basically identification of opportunities. So systematic literature review and the critical literature review or mapping, this only will be helping you. So what is this research gap all about? It is the difference between what is existing now, the theories, the assumptions, the practices, the constructs, the relationship, all are existing now. You don't have to search it. It is already existing. You just write it down. But the most important aspect from a PhD thesis or a research scholar, what we expect is, where are you taking it ahead? That the existing literature couldn't explain it. Means that where the literature is existing to where the literature should be. So that movement, what exactly done and what should be done, that movement we call it as gap. So if you don't identify number of gaps, then it will be very difficult for you to fix it. So what do you mean by research gap? Basically, when you do the literature review, you will try to get mixed previous empirical results, positive, negative, significant, insignificant, all kinds of literature when you are getting, we call it as mixed previous empirical results that you have to collect it. Second, conflicts in the theoretical approach. Some theories turn to be outdated, or some theories progressively moved into higher level. I'll show you one example, how the progressive movement of theories. Okay, if I have the diagrams, I can show you. Okay, this is, I saw that. Okay, that's gone. Okay, diagrams. You look at this one. Okay, not this one. Let me see. Okay, I'm showing you this diagram. This diagram, hopefully I'll be getting this copyright from Government of India shortly. It is in the final stage of the attorney's inspection and court, and it is final stage exactly. So if you want to use it, you can use it, but this is, we call it about the progression of theories. You look at, there is a frame. First, this frame I'm showing you. Okay, a lot of theories connected. So you have a variable called service quality and perceived value. It is connected to intention to revisit and visitor satisfaction. This is your research frame. So you get service quality and intention to revisit for H1, service quality and the visitor satisfaction H2, perceived value and intention to revisit is H3, and perceived value and visitor satisfaction H4. So you look at this aspect, you get around 4 hypotheses. My question is, how are you going to connect with the theory? Which theory is supporting this research frame? This is the question. So if you don't identify a strong theory, or if you don't identify multiple theories to substantiate your variable selection, your thesis is redundant. So the most important aspect connected with it here is that get the theory to substance. So if you divide this entire frame into different components, you see the first one, I'm going to get it, service quality, perceived value, and intention to revisit. These 3 I'm connecting. Only these 3 I'm connecting. Okay, so I got a theory called as theory of reasoned action. When I connect only with these 2 and intent, I'm not connecting visitor satisfaction. Got it? So when I'm connecting these 2 only, I'm getting intent. That is one theory, that is theory of reasoned action. But when you look at the second one, look at here. When I'm connecting service quality and perceived value, second DV, that is visitor satisfaction. So you got a different theory, because visitor satisfaction, when the DV changes, and these factors, even though these factors are same, no problem. When the DV changes, almost new theories are coming up. So you cannot explain service quality and perceived value through theory of reasoned action. You need to have a different theory to explain it. So when you pull a diagram, when you pull a research frame, it is your responsibility basically to look at the literature and get maximum number of theories available. Maximum number of theories available, which will be explaining. If I can show you some thesis and likewise, okay, chapter 1, my piece. Okay, you look at here. I'm just showing you one thesis. Okay, this thesis you can see here, dimensions of high performance. What I'm going to show you is the theory. Okay, 2 points. So dimensions, all these things you are mentioning here. And the last portion of the second chapter, you need to mention. You need to mention about what theories, what are the theories you are going to use in your study. So systematically, you need to identify all the theory. Okay, studies of job security. Okay, let me go down a little bit. It will be telling about the theoretical underpinning theories, and likewise I'll be getting. So let me show that to you here. Okay, this it will be coming up over here. It is connected underpinning theories. You look at here, one theory which the student uses RBB theory. This is another thesis. This they have explained how the theory is useful for your research that you have to explain in your chapter number 2. And if any other theory you are using, take an example, the student is using also social exchanges. So 2 theories in order to explain the model. I'll show you the model. In order to explain the model that the student has created, there are 2 theories to support. There are 2 theories to support. If you want to explain the relationship between the independent factor selected and the dependent factor selected, literature is telling you that this is the purpose of literature review. So when you go through the literature review, you need to get these theories and then explain it. 2 theories needed to explain. So what is exactly the model you are arriving at? Look at this model. This is the model the student is arriving at. So high performance organization, making a study on high performance organizations. So it consists of high performance work system and then external environment and then organizational culture. These 3 aspects which are influencing high performance work system. So that you have to explain. Arriving at this frame is not the matter. Arriving at this frame is not the matter. How did you arrive at? How you got this construct? What are the conceptual definitions? What are the operational definitions? And what are the theories you are using? All these things you have to explain. Then only you can do a research. So this is connected with a frame. Now I will explain to you what is this conceptual definition and how these conceptual definitions are differentiated from what you would say. This I will explain to you conceptual and operational. These are also part of literature review. So I'm going to explain to you the constructs, collect the literature, and then get the constructs, get the sub-constructs. Then it is connected with the relationship between the IV and DV. IV and DV. So this is exactly the relationship analysis is coming into the picture. All right. So here, when you look upon the relationship and likewise, let me go back to the what you would say, the theory, relation theories, and likewise here I can show you. It's okay. Here it is coming. Okay, the difference between the conceptual and operational definitions. So take an example. A conceptual definition is basically tells you what a concept means. It is not facilitating you to do a research to make somebody understand, to make yourself understand what is. Take an example: organizational commitment or productivity, or you are talking about customer satisfaction, or you're talking about what you would say return of investment, or any kind of concepts you are taking into consideration. It will be helping you just to understand the concept, what it is. It never allow you, it never permit you to do a research. So there exactly you need to take an example: adolescence. A concept of adolescence is a transitional stage of physical and psychological development that generally occurs during the period from puberty to legal adulthood. So this is exactly the definitions given by. But the problem is that if you go to America, the people reaching to adolescent stage may be very fast in comparison with typical African countries, or what do you say, India or Asian countries, and likewise, right? So that you have to clearly mention, because the stage of adolescence in India, how it has been defined, that you have to make it a difference between the other countries to position. Otherwise, the other country population, the people, the authors, they can criticize you. They can criticize you. This is most important aspect. You need to know it. You need to know this one. So customer satisfaction, all these things we call it as the conceptual definitions. But when you connect it with conceptual, how you can represent that in your thesis literature review is what is the conceptual definition and what exactly it is dealing with. What is the response we are exactly getting when you look at the customer side, that is response is fulfillment response or judgments exactly. And the focus is product or service. So that is during the conception. So you need to be very clear when you have to put across. Take an example when you talk about stress. Job stress in IT sector is different from job stress in iron and ore sector. Manufacturing type of industries, the kind of stress affected by what you would say influenced through various job functions totally different in a service sector or retail sector, entertainment sector, and likewise. It's totally different. So people may talk stress differently. So if you know the concept, it doesn't mean that you can do that in your sectoral choice, So we need to get proper conceptual choice exactly. All right, conceptual definition. The second one is called as operational definition. Operational definition indicate how are you going to measure. This is most important thing. Which definition or how are you going to define the same concept in an operational way? So a concept of stress, job stress is available. Everybody know about it. But how are you going to define that in your thesis to operate the thesis? That is most important thing. That we call it as operational definitions exactly. So it is a definition for a variable stated in terms of specific testing criteria. Testing means measurements. How are you going to, how many items? All the items that you have selected should be closely linked to that concept. So in this particular research, job stress indicate that this aspect, a person, whether a female or a male, exactly felt during the particular course of their job functions, and likewise, you have to mention about it. So that particular aspects only you're supposed to measure it. You got it? So the conceptual definitions and the operational definitions should be properly defined in your literature review. This is connected with that. So here operational definitions, take an example. To create an operational definition, we need to define the concept first. This is most important aspect I told you. When you have to do the literature review, first of all, you have to look at the concept. If you don't get the concept clearly, it is clearly indicating that it is going to qualitative research rather than quantitative research. You cannot generate any concept by yourself. That concept should be obtained from literature. You don't have any support other than the authors from the literature. Neither the supervisor can support you at the time of your defense. They cannot do anything. You have to survive. It is your baby and you have to protect your baby properly. So you need to get the definitions starting from 1980s to 2022 and tell to the crowd that I am clearly aware about how it has defined properly. Got it? And how we will measure it. So if you don't get the conceptual definition, you cannot convert it as operational definition. Got it? So this is the movement we expect when you have to differentiate the difference between. Take an example. You need to look at this way: job satisfaction, job performance, and likewise. These are all small factors, exactly concepts. But when you connect it with a scale, items, and the scale, that we exactly call it as operational definition. So how many items in a particular construct is defined by the operational definitions rather than the conceptual definition. So make it clear the difference between these two. You also have to get these kind of, if I can have some example, I can show you. Okay, this is research gap example. I can show you. Okay, maybe having literature review theory. This I have explained to you, moderation explained to you, mediation explained to you, literature review explained to you, theoretical lenses and selection of papers, perspective, time bonds, and like this. Okay, this is operation. Okay, you look at operational definitions and likewise, this one example I can give you. So if you take an example, entrepreneurship, a persons who acquire opportunities to add value for themselves on the firm's corporate entrepreneurship. So you can get a word acquisition of opportunities, value, firm, corporate. Some of the words you are getting exactly here. So whether the items you have generated is closely linked to this particular, if you're doing research in 1983 and likewise, this definition may be applicable. But when you look at down to the latest, why I'm asking you, go for the latest literature, because You look at the latest definition here. This is a conceptual definition, but it should be converted as an operational definition. Entrepreneurship is a dynamic process of, so you have to ask questions connected with vision, change, creation, application of energy, passion towards all. When you have 5 to 10 questions absorbing this concept, then it is more, the most important aspect is that all these contents should be available in your questions. If your questions are not connected with this definition, then the operational definition and your items are not at all related. Not at all related. So the most important aspect, when you do the instrument analysis, you need to get the operational definition properly from the conceptual definition. So conceptual definition, operational definition, items, then scales to be connected. It can be 7-point scale, it can be 6-point scale. So this also you need to decide which scale I can use it. That also you have to go back to the literature. Then you have to look at who are the authors use 7-point scale, who are the authors use 10-point scale. You cannot just fix a scale. You need to get the supporting evidence. You got it? So these are the tasks waiting for you to do that. So now, if you understand this concept, conceptual definition, all these aspects, so where we have deviated here, it is connect small aspects itself. I am telling you the focus. Taxonomy of literature, you need to focus on the research outcomes, method, theories, practices, constructs, all these things. Second, the goal of this particular literature review is possibility towards generalization. Are you providing any kind of conflict resolution? Qualitative people, quantitative people, or within the quantitative people, so many inconsistencies. That's I told you, research gap. So a lot of people say yes, no, all this. Can you provide a conflict resolution? That is the role of literature review. Linguistic bridge, quali, quanti, case studies, or any kind of methods that you are integrating. You need to get those literature, meta-synthesis, meta-analysis, all these things to be integrated. And criticism, critical literature available in your research or not. It's not just cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste things happening. The most important aspect is how are you look. Don't accept anything. Don't accept anything in what you would say in a research as it is taken for granted. Why I'm telling you, if you accept others' point of view, you already closed that research. There is no opening for you. So if you don't close it, you are telling that no, the sample selected is not right. The method selected could have been phenomenology in comparison with grounded theory. Why the author has done it, no idea about it. Some people used qualitative research alone. Why they have used qualitative? Because there is no validity and reliability available for that particular type of method. Hence, a mixed method, quantity also to be conducted, hence mixed method research to be applied. So you need to look at the possibilities. When you accept everybody's literature, you don't have any option to move. You need to find out the inconsistencies. Don't accept any literature as it is. Critically view on it that I'm not going to accept this literature because the sample population only is 181. With 181, when millions of populations available, 181 population coming from a rich country, how it is applicable to a poor country like here? So that is exactly the questions you need to ask, critical viewpoints. So goal of literature review is arriving at possibility of generalization, any possibility of conflict resolution, any possibility of, you are trying to bridge the linguistic, what you would say, gymnasium between quali and quanti and language, different type of literature. And all kinds of literature can be done. It can be from textbooks, it can be from journals or periodicals or any kind of online articles or anything can possible. How you merge it and how you interpret it and look at the possibilities to do a research. The third aspect, perspective. Perspective talk about, have you taken a neutral representation? If you support everybody, you cannot pull the thesis. So the most important, where you have position, you always have a kind of neutral representation. I'm not sure about it. This literature talks about positive relationship. This talk about negative relationship, but I'm not sure what exactly happening in Garden City University. I'm not sure about it. Many universities has established this truth, but the nature of Garden City University is totally different. The courses running is different. The patterns of teaching different. The pedagogy is different. The industrial tie-ups different. So see that particular context, whether I can take up all these variables, I'm not sure about it. Your neutral represent. Let it be yes, let it be no. I'll be telling you later. All right. Let me conduct the research. So you have to espouse your position properly. That is, you can look at, take an example, the poverty. Poverty, when you look up an entrepreneurial angle, look at an economic angle, look at the perspective of a psychologist, look at the perspective of a sociologist, look at the perspective of an anthropologist, it is totally different. It is not an economic perspective, poverty, they look upon, they don't have the food to have. Scarcity, demand and supply. But when you look upon, what you would say, psychological angle, the fear element, the anxiety, a lot of psychological variables are coming into the perspective. When the perspective change, variable changes. To look at the entrepreneur, the same phenomenon looked by an economist, totally different from look by an entrepreneur, different from an anthropologist, different from a psychologist, different from a sociologist. So what kind of positioning you are looking upon? That's what I told you. You need to have the boundaries, proper boundaries with which only you can explain a fact. Because many business, take an example, business management literature. This is mixed up with psychology, sociology, all things. So if you try to define, if you collect only that kind of literature coming from only one discipline, it may not be sufficient. One theory from one discipline may not be sufficient. Multiple theories may be needed. So that is the purpose of literature review. So you need to look at your perspective. For that, I'll show you one example. Going back to here, perspective. Look at this one. This is coming into the picture. Here, economic, take an example, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship views by economists, relationship between economic environment and entrepreneurship. Psychologists, entrepreneurial characteristics, orientation, psychological variables, and entrepreneurial process. Sociological, that in the social background, social groups, family, religion, church, peer groups. Okay, cultural, connected to the cultural back from which culture is a Scottish culture or British culture or what kind of culture, Indian culture, background with which exactly evaluating. Look, different types of inquiries are coming. Here you can analyze the effects between the two, but here it's a qualitative approach. Only causes we can analyze. You only can ask the research question, what are the variable? What? Identifying the factors. Look at the other causes. Look at here, causes. So you need to have a different perspective to understand. Take an example, if you understand the same problem in a multiple perspective, means that you cannot do the research only through quantitative approach. You need to look at the qualitative also. So how this researcher can position themselves is based on the perspective, the boundaries, and the logic. The boundaries, perspective, and logic only will be getting through critical literature review. You need to you position yourself an entrepreneur, which are the variables coming. You position your economist, which are the things, and how it is contextually, how boundary wise, how that particular variable is influencing. Get the supporting evidence, then only you can arrive at your research frame. You got it? So a lot of things you need to do before you go for a proper conceptual frame. A proper conceptual frame. Let me go back, the one which I am defining to you. I don't know where. Okay, perspective. Then coming back to the coverage, how much literature review needed? I'll tell you, every concept to be defined properly, at least 10 definitions, quantifying in a table, put the authors on left side, put the definitions. Likewise, every concept you are explaining should have the proper I'm going to take you towards this example I have shown you here. I don't know whether I have taken that. Okay, like this is all thing. Okay, I'm not seeing here literature matrix. Okay. I might have this one. Let me just my thesis matrix. Housing. Okay. I'm not seeing operation definition. Okay, let me just try here. If it is available, okay, I'm getting here. Since I have, so here it is coming into the picture. All right, this is coming into. If I have to measure this, I'm completing. I'm writing a thesis for my postdoc, and that exactly I'm showing to you properly, but I'll be submitting in a period of 6 to 7 months duration. So this is my postdoc I'm planning. So there, how it is. Take an example. You look at this, how I can define, what you would say, high performance work system. 1997, who defined it? The content is coming from which country, scope, connected to which variable, and how it is connected. This is connected to this one. This is connected with this one. This is connected with this one. So some studies, high performance work system linked to corporate financial performance. Somewhere it is related to workforce turnover and productivity. So I'm talking about now coverage. If you think that the financial literature I should not incorporate, that may not be a complete thesis. You need to have the financial and non-financial literature connected to that. That is a comprehensive literature review. So you need to integrate all. So likewise, there should be a table, and the table should explain all these from year to year, the progressive literature till up to here, how it has defined properly that to be integrated, conceptual definitions and likewise. So you can have here, take an example. This also I can show you one example. Okay, see an example problem statement. Theoretical lens, literature, motivation, arriving it. Okay, the themes like writing problem statement. I'm not getting the concepts clearly. Example CLN. Here, you can see over here. This is I'm talking about hypothesis-based literature. All right, here you can see where I have collected this particular. I have integrated this quotation into my thesis as an argumentative literature. So from where I got it, and which article I have collected, and who are the authors, what is exactly the relationship quotation, and by reading this one, what variable I get it, IV variable, what DV variable, and your remarks. This you need to get it. If you're posting hypothesis-based literature and likewise, you need to get this one must. This is the first thing you have to show to your supervisor. And sir, this is the way I have got the literature. This is the way I got this construct. This is the way I have integrated, established the relationship between IV and DV. And this is the way you have to convince your supervisor. Don't just dump first chapter, second chapter, third chapter on this. They don't like it at all. Why? Because there is nothing in that particular content to what you would say, to establish the fact that there is a need for a study. There is a need for a study connecting between these two constructs and likewise. So you need to be very careful when you are collecting literature reviews and likewise conceptual. You can have it when you likewise if you put it in conceptual definitions, which if you take an example, you can just write it here. What is conceptual definition, and likewise conceptual definition of customer loyalty, conceptual definition of customer satisfaction. Likewise, you need to have a table indicating how many, around 10 to 15 conceptual definition connected with the constructs you have integrated. So that to be there. Take an example. If I can show you the chapter here. Okay, chapter two, the one which I have shown you now. Okay, this one itself I can show you. Each chapter number 2 consists of, basically, chapter number 2 consists of concepts, relationship, hypothesis-based literature, theoretical underpinning, and arriving at the conceptual frame. This only be needed, especially when you talk about, take an example, certain theses and likewise, when you have to integrate these concepts which you have studied, the pattern of writing, introduction, concepts, which are the concepts you have integrated, that to be there. And after that, relationship between IV and DV, all the hypothesis-based literature. Then connecting that to a theory or multiple theories. Then connecting to arriving at conceptual frame. This only needed in literature review section. Other than that, supporting literature, if you have anything which is very relevant, you are feeling about, it has substantial supporting element with your results, then you can add it. Otherwise, you cannot add it at all. So these kind of things you need to be careful. So now I can show you the metrics, that most important aspect is the literature metrics exactly. So here I have taken, I think, so this is exactly, we call it as a literature metrics. This you need to develop. So every student initially has to go through literature metrics development. So here, oh, I told you, you are supposed to approach only, journals. Journals only can support you with empirical observations, proper conceptual definitions, latest definitions, progressive literature, progressive theories, most popular theories, all these things you can get it only through here. So you need to get the author, the title, the journal, the year. Take an example, who are the authors? And title, meta-analysis. This is the title you are getting. Take an example, you got a paper, a research paper. Who are the authors written that particular review paper? And what is the title of that paper? You have to write it down. And which journal it is coming up. Then the year, which year it is coming up. Then going towards the connecting to your, but if this is not, if you don't ask this question, it's okay, you can use later. But that particular study consists of the research question. What are the research questions asked by that particular authors in that particular paper? You can write it down. What design they have used, meta-analysis, and what sampling they have used, total sample size. What data collection practices they have used, this you can write it down, randomized and likewise. What findings we are getting, that also you are getting here. And what are the limitations of the study, that also you can write it down. What are the level of evidence, that also get it. Internal validity, good. Comments, if you have any comments and likewise, you can get it. So this we call it as basically metrics, literature matrix exactly. So how many literature matrix you have to get it? First, you have to get literature matrix like this, the author, title, journal. To take an example here, you can add one thing like conceptual definition. So conceptual definition based literature matrix, operational definition based literature matrix, right? Then findings based, only the findings based literature matrix, you can pull it, you can make it. So all these, how much literature matrix supporting you, that exactly you have to provide to your supervisor, and they will look at it. And when they look at the reason once, and likewise I have, if I can show you here, I can show you, like, okay, this is coming here. Let me show you. If it is available here, metrics, I can show you. Okay, this is exactly I'm talking about literature metrics. So here you can see this table you have to build up. Every research scholar has to build up this table. So I told you better you should go with journals more. So when I look at, as a supervisor, when I look at this journal, I can see that the best of the 30 journals have you incorporated or not. So the most important aspect for any literature review session is best 30 research, best 30 authors in that particular domain. If it is entrepreneurship, best 30 authors. If it is marketing, best 30 authors who talked about green marketing. So if your study topic is connected with green marketing, okay, who are the people, who are the best 30 people, 30 to 50 authors who talked about that particular topic, that to be there in your thesis. So what I'm looking upon here, I looked upon here. Because I'm an expert in green marketing, so I look upon here and I come to know that, oh my God, the student has incorporated all these authors. Means that the students have done very good literature review. Okay, second, journal name. Which journals they have incorporated? Okay, they have incorporated majority international journals which touches green marketing, which touches green sustainability, likewise. Okay, so that particular journal also to be. So I prefer, when you get this journal, you need to go for Q1, Q2 level, SIMAGO. If it is Scopus rating, it is SIMAGO. Okay, WOS you have to go the other way. You have to get the best of journals, and majority journals are Scopus and WOS. Lot of journals are Scopus and WOS together. That journal's also quite good. Okay, so you need to look at that possibility of getting such journals which is high impact, which is having high citation, which is coming into particular domain. Take an example, I told you, if you're doing retail, Don't go to manufacturing sector based literature review. So any study connected with manufacturing and marketing, don't connect it with. You have to connect it with service sector and marketing because your study is more connected with service sector. So likewise, you need to get clear-cut differentiation of the literature. And in the service sector, retail, it is coming retail. Then that particular, what you would say, article should be dissected and to be evaluated into. So when you look at the literature review article, how many articles you have referred? Maybe 500, 600 articles you have to minimum. 600 to 1000 articles we used to ask the research scholars to read and then come up with the proper constructs usually. So having around 600 to 700 articles still can substantiate your research work. When I go to the reference also, I check. When you submit the thesis, I'm checking only one thing, whether the literature review is reasoned or not. So when I look up at this one, I can easily understand as a supervisor, majority article you have incorporated is 2022, 2021, 2020, and likewise. So if anything connected with 1989, if except that literature is so classic in nature, motivational theories, leadership theories, all these theories are so classical in nature, but don't write those definitions or anything inside your thesis. Only you have to put Maslow 19 something and likewise that's sufficient because every expert knows that what is exactly Maslow theory. Don't try to teach as a research scholar, don't try to teach your examiner, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? That is not your job. So you can just mention that particular, these are the theories available and likewise, this I have evaluated. But out of these theories and like this theory, I'm going to, what you would say, integrate with my thesis for testing. That's only. So I look upon the authors, best 30 authors or 30 to 50 authors available in your thesis or not. That I evaluate. Second, the year of publication. It is 2022. You are supposed to finish your thesis in 2024 means that you just started. 26 means that when I get the thesis or as a supervisor, I'm evaluating every week. I'll be calling you and I will be asking you where exactly you're standing. I want to see. I want to see the conceptual integration, theory integration, all these things, right? So that time I am evaluating his. Finally, when you try to evaluate, it's very difficult for us to redo it. So better we need to have the scholars with the supervisors every month, at least 1 to 2 sitting. You have to make it and check that you are in the right journey with the right theories, with the right constructs. Got it? So I'll check on which volume and which number it is coming up. That means every journal consists of course, maybe one journal consists of 1 to 12 volumes. Sorry, 1 to 12 issues. Take an example, 2021. 2021 volume consists of, if every month that particular journal is publishing, 12 issues will be coming. If they are only bi-monthly, only 6 issues are coming. If it is what you would say biannually, every 6 months only 2 issues will be coming up. So some journals are annual, only one time it is publishing. So you need to check. You need to check properly whether that particular journal is biannual or monthly or annual. All these things you need to check. Based on that, you need to get the issues and number. Now, take an example, you got a quotation that there is strong relationship between, I have shown you the hypothesis-based literature, in which it is clear that there is strong relationship exists between entrepreneurial orientation and entrepreneurial intention. I got a quotation. That we call it as here. Here, you have to write it down. So from that quotation, I need to get IV. From that quotation, I need to get the DV. From that quotation, if available, I can catch up the moderating or mediating variable. All right. Otherwise, you can have a separate table and explain why this particular is turned as particular areas, that factor is turned as a mediator variable. This you can explain. So variable you can mention, subvariables. This is IV subvariables, DV sub factors. Take an example. Some factors are unidimensional in nature. Some factors are multidimensional in nature. Take an example, service quality. Service quality is measured through multiple multidimensional factors like tangibility, assurance, empathy, reliability, responsiveness. All these 5 factors together, we call it as service quality. So we need to check whether the construct is multi-dimensional or unidimensional in nature. That also is part of literature review. Systematic literature review gives all these factors exactly. Got it? Then connecting to what method, if I'm getting this article, this quotation, and this variable, which is used by which methodology? Is it quanti or quali? And what theory used by this particular author? Okay, so when you go through all these 15 articles, 30 articles, 100 articles, you get all the theories used by the past research scholars. You get all the designs used by the past research scholars. You get all the different type of methodologies used by, otherwise you cannot explain to your supervisor why I have chosen quanti, why I have chosen quali. And that will be a big problem when you go for proposal defense and then go for final defense. They can completely shatter your thesis. If you go for abroad for evaluation and likewise, they are very strict, extremely strict on that, and they'll be looking upon all these aspects. What's article number 1? What sample size? Article number 2? What sample size exactly? Every sample size, so you get an idea how much sample size I have to make use of it. Got it? This is the purpose of literature review. And then connecting that to the which location. Is it coming from US? Is it US based studies, developed countries? But your study is more developing countries. So can I use the literature coming from developed countries? Of course, you can use it, but it would be much appealing. You can get the literature from developing countries. So the authors from developing countries should be, rather than the authors from developed countries or underdeveloped countries. So literature segregation to be done properly. And there you will be getting inconsistencies, contradictions, mixed previous empirical observations, conflicts, linguistic conflicts. All these things, we call it as a research gap. All these things we call it as research gap. So when you do all these aspects, I'm sure about it, you're going to touch your literature review properly. So I'm just trying to, once again, I'm trying to recollect all these things back. And that is exactly what you would say the purpose of this particular session. And I have explained to you many aspects connected to your literature review, and likewise, is I want to explain organization and audience alone. You need to have specific scholars. You need to have specialized authors also. That means if you are taking green marketing, you need to have marketing literature in general. Okay, you can have general scholars. But if you're doing green marketing, you need to get at least 30, 35, 40 scholars coming only from green marketing. Means that specialized scholars, that also should be part of the literature review. And likewise, this is exactly the audience organization. You can approach historical, chronologically, 1980s to 2022, how the literature is progressing. You can write it down. You can have conceptual literature. You can have methodological literature. So if you ask me, what are the basic chapter, when you write chapter number 2, CHA, when you write chapter number 2, you can write concepts. I'll write it first, introduction. You can write, maybe you can write the concepts first. Concepts, minimum 10, 15 definitions of each concept. You can also write sub-concepts. You can write sub-concepts. Okay, sub-concepts. All right. Then coming to hypothesis-based literature. Hypothesis-based literature. Remember, one mistake I used to see, they put the propositions and hypotheses inside chapter number 2. Never do that. Never do that. Argumentative literature you can incorporate, but never pose your hypothesis in chapter number 2. Hypothesis should be only in methodology section, where you are trying to integrate theories. Got it? And theoretical frame. Conversion of conceptual frame into theoretical frame is important. Go for a testing. So don't use hypothesis, posing hypothesis 1, hypothesis 2. Don't write it. but that literature you can add it over there, no problem. But the way I have shown you, one paragraph, hypothesis, one paragraph, hypothesis, that should be in chapter number 3. The next one is connected is what you would say, the underpinning theories. Underpinning theories. This also you can work it out. Then all the theories you don't have to explain, which are so relevant, you can incorporate. Then you have to tell what theory I'm going to use, or multiple theories I'm going to use. And then you can fix here the conceptual frame. Conceptual. This is the, and finally, you can have any supporting literature. Then finally, conclusion. This is only you have to write in chapter number 2. Only you have to write. Other than that, you don't have to write anything. And specifically, when you write chapter number 1, it is totally different in comparison with chapter number 2. So if you don't do the chapter number 2 properly, you cannot write chapter number 1 and you cannot write chapter number 3. So as a research scholar, you need to spend more time on chapter number 2. Get the literature, get the conceptual clarity, get the constructs properly, conceptual definitions, get the constructs ready, relationship ready, then arriving at the frames, conceptual frames, then connect it with the proper theories, then moving towards looking at the instruments and likewise, that is the later stage. All these things you should finish even to arrive at a title. What is happening in our society is that they fix a title first and they go for the research. It's not like that. Once you do a big problem before you, but you are dissecting it into maybe supply chain management or operation research or some sort of things, the title you have in your mind, but don't fix it. Go to the literature review properly, arrive at the proper contemporary concepts and subconcepts, contemporary theories, contemporary argumentative literature, get all the authors into that chapter number 1 and 2 and 3 and likewise, at least 2, then arrive at the conceptual frame. From the conceptual frame, you have to connect with a theory and it will be going to empirical plane. And that's the way theoretical frames or research frames are coming into the picture. And it will be leading to write chapter number 1, which consists of background information, first problem statement, second coming down to research questions, research objectives. Never pose hypothesis in chapter number 1 also. Up to objectives, okay. Objectives and research questions, okay. Don't pose hypothesis exactly in chapter number 1 or 2. It will be in chapter number 3 alone. Integrated with a theoretical frame. So this is exact. These are the things I can talk to you today, connected with that. And all right. So this is exactly the things I can share to you today. And now maybe I can answer you some of the questions connected with your thesis or any kind of what you would say clarifications you need that in your current session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Participants, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask question directly to Dilip sir, or also you can post your questions in the chat box. I will moderate the questions. Are there any questions from the scholars, especially? Scholars? Am I audible? Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
That's great. Thank you. Are there any questions from the participants of today's session, or if you have any of the feedback you'd like to share, that would be great. Sir, the one question which I'd like to ask you is in terms of selections of journal with regards to your proposed particular research. How a scholar or a researcher should go about it, apart from the impact factor or apart from the quality of the journal in terms of Q1 or Q2, Q3 or Q4. Are there any kind of special tips which you like to share with the people in terms of selecting the journals and the research papers? I think. Dilip sir, am I audible?
Yeah, now it is.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, some
So
internet.
there was. Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great. Yeah. There was one question which I asked from my end. Do you have any suggestion in terms of selecting the research papers under a particular journal, apart from the impact factor, apart from other quantitative factor which you have mentioned about Q1, Q2, and Q3 related to your proposed research of your researcher?
You can collect. I'm not restricting you with journals alone. You can have with the textbooks and likewise that you can connect it, but you need to know the limitations of the textbooks exactly. Like what I can tell, when a person starting writing a particular book and likewise, it can integrate a lot of models and things will be there, but that you can integrate, but it won't be so reasoned in nature. So I don't suggest you too many textbooks integration into the thesis. Instead of that, we need to focus into basically journals. But you can also look into industrial reports. You can take an example, financial data, and likewise, if you want to get stock market analysis, all kinds of things. And of course, you have to go for primary data a lot. So maybe secondary and tertiary data also. Of course, you can go for secondary literature connected with. At the same time, a lot of numerical data, you can pull it inside if it is a financial thesis and likewise. So secondary tables, all these things can be collected. So the financial parameters connected with and likewise lot of data you should get it from industrial reports and likewise. Of course, you need to integrate that one. Then periodicals, industrial reports. I didn't touch basically qualitative literature reviews and likewise. Purely focus on quantitative level and like a gone. But if you go for qualitative literature review and likewise, many times why we have to integrate qualitative. Take an example. If you do mixed method research in which sequential exploratory study design is used. When you use sequential exploratory study design, why we are using? Because we don't have proper variable first. So that particular time and likewise, we need to arrive at proper concepts. This is the first objective. So this is an exploratory phase. So the literature review is based on primary data, interview, observation, content analysis, all these things are coming. So that way also you can collect it also. So there you can use memos, you can use diaries, you can use autobiographies, any kind of literature, even the letters written by somebody, anything can be, which is dated, purely dated, proper date is there, proper year is there, and it can be used. I'll tell you one issue connected with is that when you do literature review connected with, what do you say, qualitative research indicating that once when I was the second jury of one literature review, that particular, a PhD thesis defense, that particular time, Professor Jenny was there from Australia. I was the second external, and she started immediately. She started very fast, and she asked only, "You have described this quotation from this particular participant. This is the quotation. Always don't think that first of all, you should think that only secondary literature is not sufficient enough to move your thesis. You need to have the primary literature also. Primary literature means that how you get this variable, of course, it has obtained through secondary data, no doubt. But did you cross-verify or did you cross-validate it with the primary data or the stakeholders or not? That question can come from jury. So you need to have proper interviews and observation, some sort of things should be there. So that particular time, you will be having quotations of some people, CEOs of the companies talking about leadership. You're talking about transformational leadership. They're talking about, so that particular time, you need to get the quotation. But the issue is that when you have visited that particular place, which date, which time, and that should be in, remember, it should be there in the ledger when you enter into that security list and like this, because anytime the jury can call back and they can call from the same viva the person has integrated this particular quotation. This particular person has come to your company or
Yes.
not, and they can verify it. So primary data, you can add it. Secondary data, you can add it. All kinds of memos, all kinds of diaries, critical incidents. Critical incidents, you can add it. Biographies, autobiographies, memos. I specifically mentioned you memos. Memos is not exactly the memo we are talking in the official realm, but memos means critical reflections. Critical reflections of the researcher that is happening in qualitative research. We call it as reflective journalism. Reflective journalism. So take an example when I'm talking to Dr. Sudhakar and I'm getting an idea, but I cannot talk to who, I don't want to intervene that particular time. So you write it down in the manuscript and you never disclose it to Dr. Sudhakar. But when you come back home, you remove the brackets and you then read with that clause that you judged that particular time of. So this we call it as memos. These are very important in qualitative literature review.
Right.
So basically, we need to integrate all these literature, specifically journals, books, articles, case studies, can be periodicals, anything which is relevant to your context integration.
Fantastic. So the second question which I'd like to ask you on behalf of most of the PhD scholars are from the industry, and they have seen a lot of day-to-day problems in the industry which requires a solution. And most of the times when they join for the PhD program, they feel that it's all about taking the problem and collecting that data and coming out with some solution. In this scenario, what is your suggestion? What is the importance the scholar should keep in mind in terms of like linking the industry problem in terms of developing theoretical support for conducting the study?
Very relevant question, Dr. Sudhakar. This is very important. I had personal experience when I was the first interaction when I made with Garden City faculty member. There was a PhD Viva happened. I forget. So that particular time.
One moment. Let me mute that participant. Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. So that particular time, I realized very clearly that it is not moving to a quantitative research properly. But I don't want to ruin that particular student's life, and likewise, at the end of the day, she has to perform as a faculty in that particular institution. I don't want to get into this. So what I suggest is that this is a very good method. Take an example. Two kinds of expertness needed to do a research. Two kinds of there exactly high criticisms are coming into the picture. One is called as a practitioner-based expertise, and the other is called an academic-based expertise. So as an academician, I'm a pure academician. I have little industrial experience alone. So I always look upon things in my academic angle. But when I talk about these particular concepts to practitioners, they don't have any idea about it. All right. So I may suggest, first of all, the students have to go to industry and get the real-time topics, which is so relevant. Okay, the first thing. Second thing, after getting that, you have to come back to the literature review with the support of databases. And you need to, what is the role of new generation research scholars is that they need to cross-validate and permute it in academic angle, because basically PhD program is basically an academic rigor based program. It is not purely an industrial based. But most important thing, when you find out the research gaps, that should be clearly connected with the implications. Okay, there should be a connection between the gaps you identified. Once you fill up the gap, it will be leading to these kind of supporting. So here, what I suggest is that go with the practitioners, interact with them, and understand in general. Interviews. That is the first stage. Second stage, come back and sit in the incubation level and try to look at possible causes, effects, all these things in academic angle. After that, once again, make a second visit to the industry and check with them and get the support for those variables which are closely connected with the problems they have exactly mentioned. Get the approval from them. Then come back and show to the supervisor, I have corroborated both industrial inputs and academic input, and then the supervisor can have a say on it. then it is real. So mostly, I'll tell you two types of research happening, Dr. Sudhakar, nowadays. One is data-based research, and the other is theory-based research. So academicians are preferring theory-based research because it needs that kind of complexity. We need to observe why we need to have a 3 years PhD program. We need to think about it. If immediate solutions are needed, what is the role of this in 3 years duration? So the complexity is less. They can immediately take a decision. Means that kind of topics are not relevant for a PhD thesis. So the most important thing, the title which we are getting from industry, that should be permuted. Once again, customize it into academic, and there should be a corroboration between these two. Then, first, if it is data, then it is going towards big data analytics platforms. If it's data-driven research, means at immediate level, millions and millions of data points you need to generate. And from the data points, you need to get the constructs properly, code it, categorize it, build up the concepts, and that is purely qualitative intervention, qualitative research. So once we get that conceptual frame from the industry based on the data, then we can move towards the next level of, that means quantitative research with the support of a theory. So this is my suggestion. These are all leading to new generation research philosophy, which is more practical in nature, which we call it as pragmatic philosophy, research philosophy. It is not interpretivism. It is not positivism. It is pragmatism, more practical solutions. Take an example. I'm a qualitative researcher. I can explain a truth. This is the thing happening. So you take this decision, but only with 15 people, 15 interviews. But I also have 300, 400, 500 available. I also can tell that. Is it sufficient when I'm getting millions and millions of customers and I can do that analysis in fraction of second with the support of machine learning and AI? Why I should go for any kind of 300, 400 sample size or a 15 sample size? So the most important aspect we need to understand, type of research changing, but still we are into the outdated forms of methodologies. So as a research scholar, I should be open. I'm a student of research. Still, I'm a student of research. So I'm integrating the first. I never do anything with academics. I go to industry. Last assignment of mine in Morocco, I was working in a university which is called as Mohammed VI Polytechnic University. That university is sponsored by a company, OCP, and that company having 52% shares. And I'm doing all the projects, all the research projects connecting to industry. Only that company has it. So the latest one I did, it was digital transformation of that entire company. They are using Oracle platforms, and likewise now they have to shift towards SAP HANA and likewise. So how it is possible? What are the human factors? What are the supplier factors? What are the supply chain factors exactly? Logistics factors affecting how many we can convert it into digital platforms. All the struggles of industry. So I can take up human factors and connect it. These are the factors with which, and I can correlate. I can do the regression. I can do structural equation modeling. Everything possible. But industry is not expecting that. Industry expect the possible solutions out of it. So here, most important aspect, we need to connect these two. And amicably, we need to settle these two perspectives. Never practical, these industry people never accept academicians. Yes. And academicians always tell industry people doesn't know anything. So these issues are happening. We need to pitch our students to such a condition they are amicably settle these two perspectives.
Absolutely. So wonderfully said. There is one participant who has raised the hand. Mr. Vivek Gupta, you can quickly unmute yourself and ask question to sir.
He's from IIM Lucknow.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
so small, one very small query, sir. Sir, yes. When is the systematic literature review to be used when we are trying to do literature review and systematic literature review are different? Because what I feel is when I searched for systematic literature review, I found there is a Prisma model, and then later on I also discovered while I was searching there is some SLR, some 4 method. So
SLR is systematic literature review, sir.
Oh,
It's
okay,
okay, no
SLR.
problem, no issues.
Okay,
See, anybody
SL,
can put any jargon, no issues
yes,
at
yes.
all. What exactly
Okay.
you see, take an example, Vivekji. When you move towards a particular topic, a problem, you don't have any. You cannot be systematic in nature.
True, sir.
When you approach a problem, nobody can be systematic in nature. The systematic things coming later side when you have to identify properly the constructs or which conceptual definition is properly can be used. That is coming later side only. SLR is later side. So initial level, whatever you are doing may be relevant, may not be relevant. So that relevance and irrelevance identification phase is the first phase we are talking about. So here we are not going to segregate the things, systematize the things, like systematically segregating the theories, systematically segregating the designs, all these things. But what exactly we are doing, there is a process we have to do. We have to get proper construct, we have to get proper literature connecting this relationship, we have to get the proper thing. Initially impossible. Most important thing is awareness about a particular topic. So this particular stage, what we are exactly experiencing is it doable or not? That is the decision we are arriving at. So what we are looking upon basically, constructs, instruments, all these things we are generally looking upon. But hundreds and thousands of instruments available to you, hundreds and thousands of designs available to you. Don't write the chapter 1 and chapter 3. Write the chapter number 2 first. If you want to write the chapter number 2, you have to minimum 6 months you have to spend for literature review. So this is the 2. I'll be adding 1 or 2 extra, but third one, identify proper research gaps. What knowledge gap you are trying to fill it up that is not filled up by the past research scholars. If they have already filled it up, why are you doing it? It's just like this one. Somebody vomited already and you want to have it once again and you want to vomit it once again. This is the process you are doing. And I don't entertain these kind of things. I want something which others couldn't explain. That should be there. We call it as research gaps. And always connect the gaps with implication. How can I contribute to society? Don't do it for yourself. Do it for your stakeholders, industries or CMOs, CFOs, or CTOs, or CIOs, or anybody. They are all waiting for your study. By filling the gap, right. These are, take an example, practical implications, managerial implications, theoretical implications, social implications, technology integration, technology implications. You integrate 2 methods, methodology implications, some sort of implications you are not left out, no use at all theory. So spend your time for literature review, get your proper research gap, then connect to the implications, and finally tell clearly that I've done a good work. And I'm sure about it. If you do like this, you will get much citations in comparison with any scholars.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, sir, for a marathon of sharing the information with our students, faculty members, as well as scholars on the topic systematic literature review.